Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video, and I'm going to be giving you a breakdown of some Resto Druid tips. I just completed my 2400 solo shuffle challenge on the specialization, and surprisingly started to have a lot of fun with it, considering how disappointed I was with its performance earlier on in the expansion. It seems like it's in a lot better of a position and a lot more fun of a position. So I like to put Life Bloom on the target I expect to be attacked, and the Life Bloom on myself. This is going to increase the healing onto the target. We open with a stun into a cyclone out of line of sight of interrupts, and I drop a vortex on the warlock, which is going to be our primary target, to try and limit their ability to escape and make them panic. You can see I've vortexed them in there on their portal, and they're not able to get away. Now I've swapped my Life Bloom over to the shaman. Send ward up on the shaman. We'll extend that with Swiftmend, and we can pretty comfortably sit crowd control. If you get a Cenarian ward with a Swiftmend after it, you're going to be able to sit a lot of crowd control. We're running D-Curse here in this lobby against the warlock. This is specifically to dispel off Curse of Weakness when it's been amplified, as it's going to prevent some of your DPS members from critically striking, so you want to pay attention to that. Always look for crowd control opportunities here. So I saw a scatter shot on the warrior, so I went for a cyclone. We fake the interrupt, and then we get the cyclone, and we're just focusing on controlling the melee DPS so that my ranged DPS can push in on top of the warlock. We'll bash the warrior out of the cyclone, and now we're going to have to tank him a bit here towards the pillar, so we're going to Cenarian ward, extend it with Swiftmend. Pop Heart of the Wild is going to make my clones really fast if I need to, and also make my bear form very durable. And now I'm using Tranquility to reset cooldowns. I really like the cooldown reduction Tranquility talent because rounds are pretty quick, so this just gets you access to a lot more nature swiftness, gets you access to a lot more cooldowns, and allows you to power through the early game. So I like just sending my cooldowns very similarly to my Discipline Priest guide. I like just going through my cooldowns very rapidly, activating all my trends, getting my Tree of Life on cooldown, and then looking for an opportunity where I can activate Tranquility to both immune damage on myself. You know, ideally you're saving it for some pressure, as well as getting the cooldown reduction towards your abilities. It's going to be a bit tougher to do this next patch, as I believe they're removing the immunity to interrupt portion of Tranquility. I'm going to be releasing a ton of PTR content for 11.1. I think that's what most people are most excited for. As soon as that PTR is up, I'm going to be ripping out a ton of videos, so make sure to smash the subscribe button for information on that. But here towards pushing for the season, another stun. We go for a cyclone, but we get feared on it. This time I decide to trinket because I have limited hots up here, and warlocks get pressured really heavily by warriors. I don't want to fall behind in this matchup, so I've just immediately Ironbark, Send Ward, Tree of Life, extend the Send Ward with Swiftmend, keep Life Bloom on ourselves, get a couple of rejuves on the hunter as well. I look for a cyclone here with Heart of the Wild. When I have Heart of the Wild, I generally don't fake cast as much because it's just really fast cast, so I'd rather just not. I hear we're playing D-Curse to remove Hex. You know, a lot of shamans don't expect you to play it, and they'll spam Hex your DPS. Really good shaman, so I really like it against shaman just to remove Hex, so our hunter here gets out of a CC for free. We're going to kill off the grounding totem, look for a cyclone on the shaman. This time we're focusing the melee DPS as double ranged, and our warlock's just going to be kiting the warrior around. But I'm going to rotate clones, try and take advantage of diminishing returns, limit the damage on the warlock, give him more time to free cast, and soak interrupts for my caster. So when you have a caster that needs to cast like a warlock, I'm prioritizing Cyclone a lot more, as you can see in this position, to try and make it easier for them to get dots. I'm moving in, I'm bashing targets, limiting the interrupts towards the Warlock, looking for entangling roots, and trying to make it easier for my caster. Then rotating my Cyclones over to the healer in this opportunity. We get Fade from the Priest, still kind of chasing him, kind of worried about the Warlock at the same time though. We've got a Nature Swiftness to fall back on, so you always want to kind of make sure you have a cooldown in your back pocket. Nature Swiftness, when you have Swiftmend, is like the best one to fall back on. You can kind of spend some time casting Clone and fall behind, and then Nature Swiftness and heal your ally back to full. Those are kind of my fail safes. We're still just sticking to the same strat of keeping Life Bloom on ourselves, Life Bloom on the Warlock, but now we're sending Tranquility. Get one Nature Swiftness at least on cooldown with Ironbark and Send Ward and all of your Trents, so you get some really big value from the reset. And now with that reset, I can just Ironbark my Warlock. He's going to be a lot more stable. He can really start hammering some damage. Warriors swapping targets off my Ironbark, which is something you got to be ready for. So we're going to switch the Life Bloom over to the Hunter for a little bit, move towards the Shaman. Look for a Cyclone. We get Thunderstorm. I think we're still going to be able to get it. Cyclone the Shaman. Just maximizing the diminishing returns, maintaining hots on the target, so we're limiting damage output, letting our hots heal the target back up, dispelling our DPS out of CC, trying to keep their momentum going at the same time. And you can see like the intricacies of this is what makes it really fun. It's trying to anticipate what attack they're going after, where can I get ahead a little bit in the game. And now I've got Tree of Life, so I can do a little bit of damage here as well. I can throw out Moonfires or toss out some Wraths onto targets and try and really go for the kill as soon as we've nailed both of those targets down. And we're able to take round 2 victory as well. So main goal when you're playing with a caster that has to cast is something like a Warlock, most notably, I think, maybe a Shadow Priest. You really got to help them soak interrupts, try and get as many Cyclone casts, even if you're just tanking interrupts or faking interrupts. Generally don't tank them if you don't have a cooldown active, but if I like Ironbark, Sandward, Swiftman, the Warlock, I can tank a kick. That cooldown will keep them alive. I can tank the kick, and then the kick's out of the way for the Warlock, kicks out of the way for me. I can go for a clone. Warlock can get damage out, and they're going to be able to ramp a lot more momentum that way. If you're just passively healing and sitting in the back, your Warlock takes all the kicks, you can't get any pressure, and you're going to take too much damage and you're going to die. So life them up on the Warrior, life them on myself, jump in, stun the Shaman, look for a clone in the opener out of range of the kicks. Just try and take a guy out of the game as soon as possible. This game is going to be about like keeping our guys aggressive onto the Warlock, so I want my Warrior fully hotted so he can go behind the pillar if he needs to. Here the Shaman's popping Ascendance, so I just bark skin right away. I see Flame Shock on myself. I'm in Tree of Life. As soon as Ascendance is up, I'm just bark skinning because they're going to Lava Burst your entire team, and I don't want to get chunked too much so that my team gets scared and they feel like they need to run away. You really got to keep a Fury Warrior like gas pedaled on their target because that's when they're going to be enabled the most. So I've still just kept Ironbark up onto the Warrior, and I'm using instant regrowth and Tree of Life to be able to pick up the Hunter now that they're swapping off the Ironbark, and they are kind of attacking me, and I used Barkskin earlier, so we've got Renewal. We can fall back on that. We're going to Heart of the Wild. We've got a Nature Swiftness. We go for the Heart of the Wild clone. Counterspell's already on cooldown. We're able to fake that a little bit earlier, so we can get control of the Shaman, enable our team to keep pushing forward. We also have a Bash available right now. Sometimes you can save Bash for when you're going to get kicked, so you have something to do when you get kicked. And we're pushing through the middle. We're taking quite a bit of damage. Not too worried about the Hex as we're fully dotted, and they're not really getting too much pressure onto the Warrior, but obviously shapeshifting would have been more ideal. And I'm kind of sitting on my Bash for a really long time. I think I should have probably bashed the Warlock here. I clone him on the Ultimate Penitence, so cloning defensive cooldowns, cloning the recovery is a really good idea. And I'm going to use Tranquility, try and reset the Ironbark, look for a clone. He fades it. If I can get a clone here on the Priest, it's really good. So I'm just going for clones, getting grounds out of the way. We're ahead on pressure. I can bash when I'm kicked. Now I can go for a clone. He's going to go for a trap, so we're going to hold it. Priest Trinkets, go for a clone again. Kick is still on cooldown, at least the counter spell. I'm not too worried about the wind shear. The spell lock is a little dangerous. Vortex him in the room, sucks him out of line of sight of his teammate, able to take down the Warlock and maintain our momentum. So it's just all about being able to maintain momentum, predicting who they're attacking, and enabling your team the most. So what are the best ways to enable them? If it's a melee DPS that needs to go aggressive, overheal them. Just use cooldowns very early, overheal them. Make sure they're really comfortable at full HP so they can gas pedal. When it's a caster, focus on directing attention towards yourself, pushing aggressively for cyclones, getting attention, but then realizing when you're getting too much attention and then backing off. And as soon as you get that kind of ability to assess those situations, you're going to start really getting a lot of control of the game and seeing like the strengths and possibilities that Resto Druid has, even despite being one of the less popular healers at the moment. We life them on ourselves, life them on the Warlock. We get flared out, so we can't go for a stunned clone this time, which is going to be a little bit difficult to recover from. But the Shaman's taking a bit to start ramping here. I see the Primordial Wave. We're feared. I'm just going to Trinket. It's Primordial Wave. Shaman's going to send Ascendance as like the first global, so I really don't want to fall behind. There's Ascendance, Bestial Wrath. I just want to keep this Warlock as stable as possible. It's a lot of damage you can see in this position. We'll use an NS. We have an Ironbark as well. I'm kind of sitting on Ironbark for a long time here, and I think I should have just used it right away, like I was saying earlier in the strats. Now, obviously, this comp can just swap off Ironbark really easily, Hunter, Ellie, Shaman. So just get ready for that if they are, but it looks like they're just tunneling through all of the defensive cooldowns of the Warlock. We just dumped all of our Trents on them. We don't care. We're just trying to max out our healing at the start of the game. Don't hold anything back. You got to be really preemptive with your healing on a Resto Druid. If you're reacting to damage, it's never going to work. You just have to constantly be using a healing global on the target that's getting attacked. See the Warlock going into the room a bit, so I kind of want to pull back with him. And then we get stunned into a trap here, and we got full hots of the Sen Ward just ending, so we're hoping that's going to be like enough for him to tide over. But with no Nature Swiftness, we got to think about using Tranquility soon just to try and get our cooldowns back. I'm dispelling Flame Shocks while we're low on cooldowns as well. That can be a good way to just limit the Shaman's damage, direct damage towards the target. And here comes the Tranquility. Nature Swiftness is now back available. Sen Ward's available. We'll probably be working towards our Ironbark here soon as well. I bash the Hunter to stop him from trapping me. Jump into the room here with the Warlock. Extend my Cenarian Ward. I'm almost always using Swiftmend onto the Cenarian Ward in these instances. And we'll drop 2 Trents on the Warrior since they're swapping off the Warlock, and this is how you're kind of like you're splitting your resources a little bit. Maybe I shouldn't have split them that much, maybe 1 Trent for the Warlock or some Trents to try and eat a trap, because now they could go the Warlock And the Warlock doesn't have any defensive cooldown, so we can track that on the left frame here. So we're going to use Iron Bark. Our Warrior still has Enraged Regen, so we're not too worried about the Warrior as long as he's, aware of that. He's stunned behind the pillar and he's getting deep and he's using Enraged Regen. He'll be able to survive with that. I need to be more focused on the Warlock. We Vortex the Hunter on the top of the tomb, just trying to prevent it from escaping from the Warrior. Misses the trap, but then somehow I end up walking into it from 1 millimeter. So we're going to trinket this because we have huge momentum. I want my team to basically push in and end the game at this point. The Priest is going to have a tough time pushing for fear because their entire team is dead. So I want my team aggressive. I got Tree of Life. I can jump into that right away. This is why we send Tree of Life like first global, is so we can get it off cooldown again for a second round, because this will be the scariest point in the game to heal through, and we have Tree of Life to deal with it. And look how scary it is. We're just surviving at like 1% health and scraping our way through that round. So Resto Druid is just all about just sending your cooldowns and knowing who's going to be the target ahead of time. So generally, casters that cast are going to be targets. So like the Warlock here casts more than the Ellie. So Warlock is likely going to be more of the target than the Ellie, because it's easier to shut down the caster that actually casts as opposed to shutting down the caster that never has to cast, as far as targeting. Also, if you have a target on your team that's in stealth, they could get attacked, but it's unlikely at the start of the game. So getting Lifeline on the target that's not stealthed is going to probably be your more ideal target. So we're going to Lifeline on ourselves, Lifeline on the Warlock, go into stealth, try and dodge the flare hopefully this time, because we can't dodge the flare, but we really want to get like a stun clone on the Warrior to limit their uptime, because the Warrior's going to be what's ramping. I dropped Trents on myself here to eat Freezing Trap. So if you stand on top of your own Trents, it makes it tough for the Hunter to land crowd control on you, which can be really good for slowing down the game. We're going to utilize Tremor Totem here and Iron Bark Send Ward, extend it with Swift Mend as they see the Hunter disengaging. And now look, he has to scatter me instead of using Trap first, which is a way lower cooldown, or lower duration crowd control chain. So it's much better for us. We go for a Cyclone onto the Warrior. There's no Spell Reflect, no counter shot. I'm tracking that with my little Omni bar down here. So I know the Hunter has no ranged kick and the Warrior has no way to reflect it. That's a chance for me to slip through, get a clone on him. And it's really important because look how much damage my guy is taking if I'm not getting any clones. I think abusing Hex like we are here on the Hunter is really good as well. Hex and clone and limit their damage. So we go for another clone. We get kicked. We don't really care. I can just gate away from the Warrior. I'll be fine. If he charges me, I can bash him. And now my casters are free casting. So I drew aggro to myself by looking for these Cyclones. Warrior got annoyed about it, tried to hit me and tried to punish me, which he probably should. And then it opens up my team to start ramping. But then the Hunter gets a good punish here by trapping me and swapping to the Shaman with no hots. So that's why we sit on Overgrowth for. Overgrowth is meant for when either your target gets spam purged to nothing, you can reset the hots, or if they swap targets, you can use Overgrowth on a target and then just get a max row of hots and be all right. Now the Hunter kind of poking me is a little bit strange. I'm just going to use Tranquility. I need to reset this Iron Bark, get to my next Nature Swiftness. I know the damage is going to ramp. We can go for a Cyclone because once again, counter shots on cooldown, Spell Reflects on cooldown here that I'm tracking. Get the Warrior out of the game. We got dots rotting the Priest. We got dots rotting the Hunter. We're starting to get ahead. I have the Send Ward up onto the Warlock out of this. I can extend it. I can NS and I can Iron Bark if I need to. So our Warlock is likely going to be really healthy, maintain the life on ourselves here. We're going to get silenced by this. We can just go bare form, jump in for a bash. And then I want to look for Cyclones here. If I get kicked, I don't care. My teammates are going to just blast them now. So it's just don't be afraid, especially if kicks that are like 2 seconds or less durations, like Hunter kick and Shaman kick. You don't need to be as worried. Now, Mage kick, Warlock kick, you do need to be more concerned about getting locked out because you can lose in that time frame. And especially if you don't have defensive cooldowns or if your allies are low. I'm generally not, if I'm playing double caster, I'm not worried about getting kicked by a Hunter or a Shaman. I think it's just better. Then my teammates can max out their damage. I can enable them to push forward and continue to secure the game for our side. So don't be too afraid of that. And so many Druids, I think, are just way afraid of that. You got to be more worried about it when they like swap to you and they start attacking you too much. And even then, it depends on the classes. So something like a Ret Paladin can definitely crack you in a Hodge. Warriors can too. Dot classes with Purge, Evokers, you got to be a bit more worried about it. But in this instance, you really want to enable your team. So we're going to bash. I see the Hunter is the open target, not getting attacked. So we're just going to stun clone the open target, take them out of the game, limit their ramp, Overgrowth the Shaman because they're swapping off the Warrior, extend the Snaring Ward onto the Shaman, reset some rejuves on the Warrior, and then probably just go right into Tree of Life form as soon as possible. We get stunned up, Freezing Trap. Oh no, I didn't want to go in Tree until after the first CC in this game is what it was. So with a Hunter, they want to stun trap you instantly. So if you Tree form, you're going to lose like 6 seconds of your Tree. So just wait for the stun trap, and then after go into Tree, and now I'm on DR. So now I can just heal for free basically. I'm looking for clones. I see Spell Lock isn't available. Hunter can't kick me when they're stunned, so I can just freely stun the Hunter and I can Cyclone them, take them out of the game as soon as the diminishing returns are available, restrict their damage, and that way my heal over time effects can actually start doing something. Kind of pushing towards the Priest here. I'm popping Heart of the Wild preemptively because I see CC going out and I really want to try and get a Cyclone on the Priest. But honestly, it might not even really be worth it as Thunder. Thunder is kind of a comp where you can play more passively because your team doesn't cast, so you don't really care about like tanking aggro and taking attention away. This comp, I think the strat that I'm playing right now isn't the most ideal, but I'm trying to go for it anyway. So we go for the Cyclone, we get kicked, we get Fade. We jump into Bear Form for a second there just because we're kicked. Clone the Hunter, get his Trinket, trying to avoid his trap. We fake the kick. Now there's no kicks available, so I do want to try and push on the Priest, and we're just kind of killing him with Hex alone. So we get, Hex into Fury. So you can see me kind of dawdling around in the middle of the map that round, trying to get a clone and getting kicked on it. Didn't matter as much. But when you're playing with casters that do need to cast, I think that is a good strategy to play more aggro. So just be aware of the classes that you're playing that are more instant cast based versus more hard cast based, and that's going to determine the density of cyclones that you need to be casting. But I hope you guys appreciated this guide on Resto Druid. I actually had a good time with it, considering how much I've been miserable on it in the past. Going for this challenge most recently was a lot better. It was a lot better. So thank you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the tips, and I will see you in the next one.